Hey guys, Rinji here, and there has been Twitter troubles. What Twitter troubles, you may ask? Well, Twitter troubles caused by Jonathan Blow, of all people this time around. Yes, Jonathan Blow, the indie game developer you might have heard of that developed such games as Braid, famously made fun of by Soldier Boy, and The Witness, a puzzle game. Quite a divisive puzzle game, I may add. I liked it, but I didn't like what was the underlining thing behind it. As in the creator's musing about what artistry and art is, which kind of falls flat given how many references normal people would not understand. References that are very hard to look up even on the internet if you wanted to learn more about what the hell he actually meant in that particular video game. But this is not about The Witness this time around. This is not about Braid. This is about Jonathan Blow's opinions about things. And it's not like he has bad opinions on everything, but when he does have bad opinions, oh, they're a doozy. And today we have one of those, which is his opinion on Starfield and why having many women being in the game is a bad thing, because men get to kill them. Yes, that's what it's gonna be about. So let's get right into that one. So the weird thing about Starfield is most of the player base is male, but because of the year 2020, ideas of equality of the evil space pirates are women. The result is a game where dudes fly around the galaxy, fictionally doing violence to many women, and it feels icky. Well, first of all, Mr. Blow, I think I will have to take your man card away because I know that's gonna sound very petty, but a 50-plus-year-old dude shouldn't probably call things icky, especially when it comes to fiction. That's just my pet peeve, but whatever. And kind of seems like Mr. Blow here doesn't believe in equality, because, you know, why would it be bad for there to be so many women NPCs in the game? I mean, they're combatants too. Why wouldn't they get the same result as the men that decides to be space pirates? I mean, when you wield a gun, when you wield any sort of weapon and you use it to commit violence, you're gonna get violence back. So why would women have to be treated equally? But this is not where he ends his little rant. It just gets worse from this point onwards. Let's continue. The combat, which is a huge part of the game, is iterating on the kind of power fantasy games have done for a long time. These games cater to what their designers believe is an impulse in the player base to be powerful and victorious. Usually this has to be in dude-on-dude fights. But by spinning it this way, the designers are implicitly saying that they think that their players have that kind of violent fantasy oriented towards women. Society would regard this as sick if stated explicitly. But because it's implicit, this mistake, parentheses question mark, was somehow made. I think you're the only person that has this kind of mindset. I mean, considering you've got cooked for it on X/Twitter, it's kind of telling, Mr. Blow. You might be a bit disconnected. You might be projecting things. I don't know. Let's continue because this is not over. By the way, I don't want this to come across as a blanket diss on Starfield. I think it's an impressive feat of organization and production to get that game shipped. Yeah, that's a feat. Getting your game out, no matter what state it is in. I haven't played Starfield, but I've seen what it looks like and what it plays like. It's a Bethesda game. It's nothing impressive, but the shilling behind it has been insane, and I want to be part of it. I'll wait for players to fix it, to mod it so it doesn't look like the original game anymore, and then maybe it's gonna be enjoyable, as most Bethesda games, at least since Oblivion. But let's continue with this random. As the more you know how the sausage is made, the more you can appreciate these things. I enjoyed many parts of my playthrough. Shooting a bunch of women was gross though. Well, you might have some, I don't know, deeply ingrained issues with that, Mr. Blow. Again, I don't want to sound very rude, but I think you should seek out some sort of therapy for this, or at least find out why you think in such cases. Dude, that's how it worked in previous Bethesda games as well. I didn't play enough of those. No kidding. And that's pretty much how I remember it being. At least since Skyrim, there have been many NPC women attacking me. Barbarians, whatever things you found in the wild, were also women. And again, if these women are combatants, why shouldn't they suffer the same fate as the men that do the same thing? I don't know what his deal is. Is it because Mr. Blow here is a staunch, like, hardcore feminist that doesn't believe in actual equality? And he wants women to be treated lightly? I don't know. He thinks it's a power fantasy for males, because now they get to kill more women than they get to kill men. This is just baffling way of thinking. Let's continue. Once more female representation. Gets it. But the players can now kill women. You can't always get what you want. I have no idea what who you're talking to. That sounds a bit like a threat. a bit self-important there, Mr. Blow. You probably didn't mean it that way, but it sure comes off as that. They're bots in a game. Why does it matter? Because it's a fantasy enactment. Oh. Again, 50-year-old man. Fantasy versus reality. It means nothing in the grander scheme of things. It really doesn't. And I don't think there's many players out there. There's probably a few. I can imagine some misogynists playing the game and they're like, oh, I'm gonna shoot up these women pirates because they're women. I'm gonna end them right here, right now. What do they think? That they have any space in this men-dominated industry of space pirating? Insane way of thinking, though. Let's continue. I don't think they're thinking about mortals, but I do think aesthetic matters. I'm a big guy, and gunning down waves of big, scary, scummy pirate dudes is a much more enjoyable power fantasy for me than blasting through loads of women that come up to my chest. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, everyone has space weapons like lasers, whatever firearms you have in Starfield, I imagine. I can also imagine there's not that much melee combat, so these women kind of have a strategic advantage because they're smaller, they're harder to hit, so in that sense they are a lot more dangerous than these big burly dudes that make a very good target for any of your firearms. But you know, that's just me, just thinking logically about this stuff in a video game where you have spaceships exploring the galaxy. To some extent, the equation has worked because the power fantasy is about being super masculine in ways guys can aspire to, but beating up women is anti-masculine and loserish. Come on, man. Who thinks like that in this day and age? I don't want to pull out the current year card, but Mr. Jonathan Blow, you're really behind the times on feminism and what it is in 2023. That's just, I don't know how people can think like that and just put their thoughts out there on Twitter and not expect any kind of backlash to a completely ridiculous mindset. Let's move on. Let's just say hypothetically that Starfield players is 50-50 between genders. How does it affect your argument? At the end, the result is the same. The player kills a lot of women in the game, more than most of other games. So then why the premise is irrelevant? This would be less gross, but still gross. Come on. It would be the same gross, that's my point. I think it would be slightly less bad, but certainly not gonna argue about it. I mean, you made a whole rant about it, so I think you're more than willing to argue about it, Mr. Blow. Okay, so let me rephrase that for you. Only the stupidest age do men ask why fictional men shouldn't fight and kill fictional women. But it's one step worse than this. Real men are enacting the fantasy of fighting and killing women. And real men would also be enacting the fantasy of killing men. he really doesn't think much of women, does he? Like, he really thinks they will not be able to stand up for themselves in a space firefight. Again, smaller targets, harder to hit. Lastly, why does killing fictional women feel any more icky than killing fictional men? You really have to ask this question, which he doesn't elaborate the answer to. So, again, this is one of these moments where Jonathan Blow has a meltdown on Twitter over nothing. And again, it's not like I completely dislike the man. He has put out some entertaining content out there. Not all of his opinions are terrible. I think to some extent he's still a respected video game developer in the indie space, even though he personally doesn't think he belongs because he's so different. And he's such a standout among all of these people doing the same thing. He's different though. He has women issues. That's how different he is. But yeah, if you guys know, Mr. Blow here has released The Witness in 2016, and after the release, he announced that his next game is gonna be made in 20 years' time. So 30 more years of waiting until we can talk about his games again. And I do hope he focuses more on that game development than putting these opinions out on Twitter, because they feel kind of deranged, to be honest. And again, I don't know any people that think the way he does, but you know, I'm not him, he's not me, and that's all there is to it. But for right now, that's everything. I hope to see you on the next one.